shit. That's what I'm talking about. Wait.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boy.
So, most of you already know me, or at least I had the chance to talk with you for a little bit. But I will start with introducing myself one more time and what I'm doing and why am I giving this talk overall. But before we start, I want to ask how many of you are working for yourself, just by reason. Okay, and how many of you already have some small team to manage? And how many of you are already managing more than 5 people? And more than 10? More than 20? Okay, cool. Okay, so it's very impressive. Okay, so I'm gonna start with myself. As you know, my name is Ola. I'm from Ukraine. I moved to Germany in 2014 for my master's degree. And basically, I never left. Berlin is my base still. In 2016, I started working in performance marketing as an intern. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't have any marketing background. I didn't know what to do basically with my life. My studies were kind of disappointing, so I had no idea what to do. And I just thought, performance marketing for mobile sounds kind of cool because I like mobile. And I started working there. And 1 year later, I was already managing a team there. So there was quite a big jump for me. And 1 year later, I was directly reporting to CEO of the company. My team was doing 70% of the revenue of the company, and we're talking millions. My team was generating millions. I was 25. It was very pressuring. I was pretty scared and anxious. I didn't have any leadership training. No one explained to me what to do. I didn't have a mentor. So of course, at some point, I was not happy with what was happening. And my management was pretty bad because they said all people are replaceable. We should not promote people if they don't ask for it. So yeah, the environment was pretty stressful. I didn't enjoy it. So I think it really pushed me towards creating my own environment and doing what I like myself. Luckily, I also had a boyfriend who was doing the same thing within the same industry, who was facing the same situation. So at some point, we just decided okay, we are managing a lot of people and a lot of money for guys that are just getting richer and richer, and we just would see our bosses buying new Porsche and new Tesla. So why do we keep doing it? Let's just try. So initially the idea was just to create our company so we can travel and just kind of try the digital nomad style. But of course back then we didn't know what it is. And 6 months after, we opened an office because we had a lot of clients that we couldn't manage ourselves anymore. And that's how the company started. And right now we have 29 people. We have 4 offices. And it's working well. So let's see, what are we doing? Okay, wait. I'm good with technology usually. Okay, so the first thing first, your leadership starts with you always. So in order to be a good leader or to manage a team, you need to understand your own skill set first. And it doesn't mean that you have to be good in everything you're doing. It's just understanding in what you're good and in what you're not good. And then just hiring people to do what you're not good at. So start with yourself. There are a lot of ways to understand yourself. So one of the tests that is widely used is the Myers-Briggs test, which is pretty long, but you can do a shorter version of it, which is called 16 personalities. And I think it's familiar. How many of you did this test already? Okay, so everyone is already understanding themselves a little.
What's your type?
It's Luca. This one.
But it's 4 letters. Yeah, ENFJ. ENFJ.
Yeah. But in the end, it doesn't matter which type of personality you are. It doesn't mean that one type of personality can be a leader and the other is not. I think it's more of being a leader is rather a skill that you can train and develop, but you just need to understand which direction you are moving. So what's important at this point, that if you're a leader and when you are a leader, it's still fine that you don't know everything. Like, that's a common mistake when you start a company and you think that your employees expect you to know everything, which they do, but it's okay that you don't know. Okay. So, to be a good leader, after understanding yourself, you also need to see which leadership style you're gonna follow. Usually there are like more or less four groups of leadership styles. That one is autocratic or authoritarian, which basically means that the power is centralized in one person. One person is a decision-making person, and the leadership is based on threats and punishment, more or less. So, or employees are scared of the boss. The other one is democratic or participative, which basically means lead by example. Leader serves as moderator or facilitator of the group, and leader is the one who motivates and empowers people to keep doing their job. The other one is a free rein or non-interfering one, which basically means leader doesn't take much initiative in the processes and gives the space to the group to develop work ethic, culture, processes, divide tasks, and everything. And the last one is paternalistic, which is basically being a big mama of the group, providing for the family. And then employees are expected to work better or harder because of the gratitude. So my personal one is democratic participative. So I'm just gonna talk more about this one because I think it's most effective one. Okay, so lead by example. What does it mean? That you need to set a good example for your team. You need to manage your workflows first, understand what are your tasks in the team, because your task is not to do all tasks. And also your task is not to understand every single process and control every single step of it. Your task is to see, like, you are like umbrella of your organization, and you just need to know how everything works in general. And then you just hire people to do the concrete tasks. You need to make sure you are able to organize your tasks, workflows, time. You need to make sure you respect the deadlines that you give, because you set the example. And if you just decide to arrive in the office 3 hours later than everyone else, you can't expect everyone to come every day on time. Or if you never respect the deadlines that you set, you also can't expect your employees to respect your deadlines. So basically you set the work ethic and they're gonna follow. So usually your employees would just copy your behavior at work and do the same. Make sure you're, of course, on time if you promised. Be there, like if you said that meeting is gonna happen, make sure you're there when it's happening. Be decisive, which is very important if you want people to follow you and to respect your decisions. I think from employee perspective, there is kind of nothing worse than when you need a decision and your manager can't give you a decision because your manager just can't decide for himself. Okay, then of course spend time to get to know your team. Get to know your people. Start with why are they working for you? Especially being like smaller company or like one person company and you start hiring, people are not going for a brand name. You're not Google or Facebook that they just want to go work. Like try to understand why do they want to work with you? Is it your service or your product? It's your name as well that they believe in you. But understanding what motivates them is super important, as well as what is their incentive to work. Some people work for money, some people work for experience, but there are like much more that can be there as well. Maybe they work for the clients that you have and they want to have the connection with these clients. Or they want to go to the conferences that you usually go to. So try to understand what's in there for them. And while getting to know your team, I think it's also very important that you also know personal things about them. Like, I think like knowing when their birthdays is a must, but I prefer to go like a bit extra mile and like know their pets' names, or if they're taking important exam, like I would always follow up with them. Okay, so you know yourself, you know your processes, you know your team. Now your team needs to know your processes. I think the best way is to have all your processes written. It takes a lot of time, and that's what I'm like struggling right now, because the team is already big and we didn't do it from the beginning. So right now I'm trying to write a lot of processes so I can be less involved in the onboarding. And it really takes a lot of time to put everything on paper. So I think the best would be, once you develop some process, start writing it down. And then just save it somewhere on the background, start creating like a Wikipedia of your processes and everything, like all the big companies are using it. Once all tasks are written, make sure you go through this task with your employees. Don't expect them just to read and understand everything that is written there. Also because, like for example, in my company we have a lot of internationals, but we speak in English, but we don't have any native speakers. So knowing that for everyone, English is not the native language, everyone can understand different things with the same sentences. Yeah. And another thing that I find super useful as well, that's especially on the bigger meetings, I always send a summary of the meeting, just with the bullet points of what we discussed so far. If there are deadlines, I also put deadlines in the email, and it's just easier rather than going, do you remember what we discussed 2 weeks ago? They won't remember. Even you won't remember what exactly you discussed. But once you have the email, it's very easy. You just click reply all, guys, update. That's it. Okay, so, okay, wait. This is my pain point. Like the delegation was the most complicated thing for me to learn, because I always felt that I can't ask for anything extra that is not directly the responsibility of employees, but there are always like smaller tasks or projects that appear that are still needed for the team or for the company in general. But interesting thing that I discovered, that people feel empowered when you give them important task, or if you give them some extra task and you explain the importance. And when they are empowered and motivated, they work much better. They want to go this extra mile because they know that you believe in them. So don't be afraid to delegate. I know it's always easier to just do things yourself, and it was the same for me, especially when it came like to some complicated Excel reports, that I knew that I don't really have anyone who is good with it, so I just kept doing it. And 2 years later, I was like, why do I keep doing it? Mm-hmm. And then it was so like obvious that I should have done it so long ago, like I should not have been doing it myself all this time. But with delegation, you should also expect that it will take time until people do it your way. Because for me, like I like everything structured, and I like everyone like to follow the structure. It doesn't mean the structure can change, but the structure should be there. So it takes time for people to understand what exactly you want from them. That's why it's better to have it written. It's better to say it again and again, maybe follow up in a week, until you see the outcome that you like. Be patient on the delegation point, of course, that's super important. Everyone is having their own time in terms of learning. Someone needs to see it one time, someone needs to maybe do it one time, which also brings to important point, see how your employees like to learn. Because for someone it's easier if you just sit once and explain, but for others it's better that you just show how it's done. And like for example, tip here, every time we show something, because we work on the platform and we work like with buying traffic and everything, so it's kind of a bit niche, and I just can't give a book to my employee to read. So when I show something, we always do like screen recording and then we save it. So then they can also always go back and go through it again. And we did the same with like Excel reports. So for every complicated task, we try to record the screen. Set your expectations right. So basically it means two things. One, be prepared to be let down if you delegate something. It means just there could be a small error or mistake that no one would notice, and you wouldn't notice because it's just too small. Or the whole task is done wrong, but the deadline is there. So there is, of course, a risk, but more times you do the task, the better the employee also will become in this task, and you won't have to think about this again in some time. But same goes to set expectations, right? You have to believe in your employees. So you have to, okay. Next slide. Okay, meritocracy, which I rarely see actually in other companies, especially big ones. So it basically means that you have to promote the people that deserve it. So in my previous company, the basic logic was that we don't promote anyone until they ask for it. This doesn't work for me. Like if I see that my employees are going extra mile, I want to promote them. I want to keep them. If I see them really doing effort for my company, and my company is like my baby, like I want to keep them. I want to keep working with them. Encourage the behavior that you like. So if you see that someone is doing something that is your way, make sure you tell this to the person, because otherwise they just would never know, and we always forget about the positive feedback as well. Appreciate extra hours. So for example, in our company, we have a motivation system that all cash generating units receive monthly bonus generated from their accounts. So more you generate for the company, more you get in the end of the month as well. It doesn't have to be money related, because also when you just start business, like promising some bonuses is also kind of scary, and it might get to a lot of money. But it's also important that you encourage and appreciate the behavior verbally. And if you can do it in front of the group, it's even better, because then everyone knows. And it's just when you hear someone was like, oh, you did a good job, everyone else would also want to be on this position. So in the end, it's like a win-win situation for you. And of course, promote hardworking employees. So if they're going this extra mile for you, make sure you share the revenue that you are generating as a company because of them. Positive reinforcement. This is also very important when you want to create a company culture. And company culture is very important overall, and it reflects how people are working. So sometimes it's like you can do just few team events, and then you directly see the input, how better they work together, how faster they communicate when they know each other, when there are some jokes involved, or maybe some music or dancing. Of course, it's great to have like team events, lunches, Christmas, birthday presents, but of course it also comes with the money that you have to invest in your employees. So it depends on which stage you are. It can be even something like tiny and small, but it's just what matters is that you did it for them. As I said, like publicly reward and recognize hard work and promote right people, I would say. Okay, the listening part is also a huge part of a manager. So it's not just creating tasks and following up. It's also sitting there and just taking all the complaints and struggles. So it's important that you have this time. It's the best that if the time is set, it can be every week, every 2 weeks, or every 3 weeks, depends also how big is your team. But it's best if it's set and it's every month or every week at the same time, so everyone knows when it's coming. Sometimes you can't do anything about their struggles. Of course, you always have to try to improve the situation, but if my employee would come and say, yeah, I have this annoying client, I can't just close the client because he's annoying. So in this case, I just have to be there, I have to support, I have to understand that this is the situation we are going through, but we are going through it together, and it will be fine. There are a lot of times that employees feel like sharing personal stuff with you. It goes without saying that you should keep it private. but I already also been to a situation when HR of my company would just translate whatever I said to the rest of the board, for example. So whatever is told to you, keep it to yourself. Don't share it with other employees. And of course, learn from them. Like if you are a manager and they're an employee, it doesn't mean that learning just goes one way. Like a lot of ideas coming from employees, a lot of improvements of the structures also coming from employees because they just see it from the outside, kind of. Okay, check on them when nothing is wrong. This is important. Everyone forgets it. Everyone only talks when something is wrong, and that's already the situation that you want to avoid. You want to start before. You want to check already when something is about to happen. And then also, there are, of course, a lot of things would go wrong, but they should feel that, okay, you are there for them in any time, when everything is good as well. Okay, my last point is the hiring, which is also very important. Your whole work relationship starts already at the hiring process. So your hiring process should be clear. Try to explain at the first interview what to expect, like how many rounds of interviews you will have, if there are any case studies or tasks that they would have to do, if there is an on-site interview coming, so they can also arrange the time. Especially now with COVID, people are traveling or moving back to their home, so they should know it in advance. Once hiring is done, have a proper onboarding. So onboarding is basically you welcoming the person to your company. So make sure you create a proper process. Like the way I do it, I always have like Excel table. Okay. I always have like Excel table with all the tasks that everyone, and I always try to involve employees in the onboarding as well. So I give them like some small kind of workshops that they do. And then by the time the employee starts, it's already like all in your Google Calendar and everything. So it's like very easy to follow. And then everyone is aware what's happening. But with the onboarding, you also need to remember that it's mostly just theoretical part. So whatever you would say, once you have to implement it and actually do, there will be a lot of questions or sometimes moments when they realize that this is what we were talking about. Yeah, hire slowly and fire quickly. That's something that I learned hard way, because firing someone is always unpleasant. But if you see that person is like constantly letting you down, it's not only you, it's the whole team that stays behind because of one person. So this is something that's important to do for the whole team, for the whole company. If you see someone is like not respecting deadlines, not doing the tasks, it's not only you seeing this, everyone is seeing this. And if everyone's seeing that, you can behave like this and nothing will happen, eventually everyone will start behaving like that. So it's very important that you keep people that are following your process. And I underline like a lot that it's your processes, but in the end it's also your company. So you're the one who will decide on the processes. And it's okay that someone doesn't agree with it. They just can find another place basically to work. Like you're not obliged, like it's your company and you do it the way you want. Of course, always take the feedback, but in the end, if someone is not following or not a fit, you just have to say bye. Okay, last thing, managing people is investing your time and energy. It really takes a lot of energy, even if it's just listening part, because it's like you take all the negativity, you're kind of the filter in between. Like you should be the one who is filtering out the negativity so it doesn't spread to the rest of the team. And to finish, I just think that this quote is pretty good, that a good objective of leadership is to help those who are doing poorly to do well, and to help those who are doing well to do even better. And I can't agree more with that. And that's all.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.